everyone, we are Group 10. We will be evaluating the program Teens Against Spice K2, also known as TASK. The main goal of Teens Against Spice K2 was to educate and raise awareness of the dangerous side effects of K2, which will then minimize the drug usage by the students who attended the high schools in the Sweetwater Union School District. Evaluation questions were used to see whether the program was able to reach its main goal. Some examples are: how has the targeted population's knowledge changed after the implementation of the TASK program? Did the TASK program succeed in helping students reduce K2 usage? Was the goal accomplished? And if so, did the benefits outweigh the costs? The conceptual model used by TASK was the health belief model. The program focuses on changing the students' perceived susceptibility and seriousness of a synthetic drug in hopes that their behavior will be influenced later on in life. This was accomplished by emphasizing both the dangers of synthetic marijuana and that the students are at highest risk. The program used interactive lectures, activities, and testimonies from K2 users. Once the teens felt that they were being threatened by this behavior choice, it was time to acknowledge the benefits and barriers, such as being alive and healthy, versus curiosity and peer pressure. This would then result in behavior change, where teenagers will be less likely to use the drug. The health outcomes TASK wanted to achieve were the following: to decrease the use of K2 within the teenage population at the Sweetwater High School District, to decrease the number of injuries and deaths associated with K2 use, and to decrease the risk of mental illnesses due to the use of K2. Sweetwater Union District invited the team to conduct the program evaluation after the intervention has been conducted. This meant that the district only provided post-test data. Therefore, a quasi-experimental design was appropriate to evaluate the TASK program. The sampling procedure that was used was non-proportional stratified sampling. 100 students from each of the 6 high schools that received the intervention was compared to the other 7 high schools who did not receive the intervention. All samples have the equal chance of being selected as shown on the graph on the screen. This chart was created to give a clear view of the sampling procedure. We began with our population, which were teenagers in San Diego. From there, our sampling frame were students who attended any of the 13 high schools, which were part of the Sweetwater Union High School District. Finally, we focused on the 6 high schools, which did the intervention, then randomly selected 100 students from each school. The independent variables was measured through a survey. The survey looked at the target population's demographics, such as ethnicity and gender, school location, grade level, and their environment. A nominal example of the question would be, which school are you currently attending? An ordinal example question for environment would be, how accessible is K2 in your area? Inaccessible, somewhat accessible, easily accessible. For the dependent variables, we are looking at the changes in knowledge, attitude, susceptibility, and barriers. These variables are also measured through surveys. To measure a continuous variable, 2 ordinal questions are measured and given a score. For example, question 1 asks the student's attitude on K2 before the intervention, while question 2 will ask the student's attitude after the program has been implemented. The response between the 2 questions will show whether the student's opinion has changed due to the intervention, whether it is a positive or negative change. The results were measured through an independent test, ANOVA, and correlation test. In order to test the students' knowledge on Spice and K2, we will use an independent t-test continuous data with schools who received the intervention compared to those who did not. By measuring the average knowledge scores of the experimental and comparison groups, the program's effectiveness was computed. Schools who received the intervention obtained a score of 90.5%, while those who did not participate in the program only obtained a score of 65.2%. This was evident that students are effectively learning about K2 with the implemented program. The analysis of variance, also known as ANOVA, was used to analyze more than two groups by the measuring of the knowledge of the 600 students from the 6 schools that received the intervention about spicing K2. The test scores before and after the intervention was compared. Since the school participants were randomly selected, the assessment scores were based on the effectiveness of the program rather than location. The data obtained from a correlation test confirms that the more barriers a student encounters, the less likely that they will show an increased knowledge of the dangers of synthetic marijuana. These barriers may include peer pressure, curiosity, gateway drugs, easy access to K2, peer, family, media influence, and trauma. According to the National Child Traumatic Stress Network, trauma is a risk factor for substance abuse. If you look at the graph, you can see that barriers and knowledge show a negative correlation. Some of the limitations that were encountered are the following. Response bias in surveys, the size of the sample not being a perfect representation of the whole student body, the inability to measure long-term behavior change due to the lack of funding, no randomization in evaluation design, and no control over the data since it was provided by another party. In conclusion, results revealed that Project Task increased participant awareness about the dangers of synthetic marijuana use. Based off the given surveys, students have an increased knowledge about K2 after the task intervention. The evaluation reveals that the task program was successful. As the task program continues, we can expect a decrease of K2 use in the targeted population. Thank you for watching!